дурака, Америка. Вот те валенки, мерзнешь, небось. Что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, баня, водка, гормон и лосось. Не валяй дурака, Америка, за морями скучаешь, поди. Что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути. Валяй дурака, Америка, вот те валенки, мерзнешь, небось. Что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, баня, водка, гормон и лосось. Не валяй дурака, Америка, за морями скучаешь, поди. Что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути.
Валяй дурака, Америка, они обидим, кому говорят. Отдавай-ка землицу, Алясочку, отдавай-ка родимую взад, отдавай-ка родимую взад.
Yeah, it's keeping up with.
Vital to your safety will follow. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States.
The United States Communist Party 2036. We are currently on lockdown mode, and we require the purging of all Trotskyist ideology from the vernacular of the infrared community. The anti-Trotsky purges begin tonight. Trotskyite Jibber has continued to infect the entire Western left since the very 1920s that Trotsky rose to prominence on the back of a revolution he had no part in actually leading the conditions of. Trotskyite Jibber is the #1 threat to the importation of Marxism-Leninism to Western countries. We require everyone to seek safety and shelter from Trotskyite Jibber, because the anti-Jibber particle beams are about to be pointed directly at every single American communist organization. Tonight, you will learn the truth about Trotskyite Jibber. However, we cannot begin the stream for as long as the energy levels are as low as they currently are. We require the current attendees of this emergency broadcast message to spam in the chat the following message: Trotsky is the problem and Stalin is the solution. Spam this as far as and wide as you can and as fast as you can to accelerate the beginning of the stream.
Америка, вот те валенки, мерзнешь, небось, что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, баня, водка, гормон и лосось. Не валяй дурака, Америка, за морями скучаешь, поди, что Сибирь, что Аляска, два берега, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути, бабы, кони, раздолье в пути.
видим, кому говорят. Отдавай-ка землицу, а-ля Сашку. Отдавай-ка родимую взад. Отдавай-ка родимую взад.
Thematic consistency. Guys, I spent all day setting up my new fucking camera. Everybody appreciate how beautiful this fucking camera is. You haven't even seen how it captures the background. When I get back fucking home, I'm putting this camera on. I was initially going to go to Best Buy, get a really good camera, and then fucking return it when I'm done. I'm not returning this shit. I'm keeping it. And I dropped a lot of fucking money on it, and I don't fucking care. This shit is crazy, crazy fucking quality, okay? I'm so confident I can put in a fucking background and it'll still look just as fucking good. Now, where's the fucking high energy tonight, huh? Because everybody needs to recognize something. What we have going on is fucking precious. This is the #1 headquarters of Marxism-Leninism in the United States. Right now is a form of media platform. The infrared media platform is the #1 Marxist-Leninist form of media communication technology. This is the cutting edge of Marxist-Leninist ideology, aesthetics, vibes, news, commentary, and theory, and most importantly, entertainment and media. It's all right fucking here. What are you fucking doing if you're not watching infrared? If you are a political partisan and you're not fucking watching infrared, what the fuck are you doing with your fucking life? This is the cutting edge of American ideology right now. I can confidently say I am the only 2020s political media personality. Thank you so much, Destiny's Crack Dealer. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much, Crack Dealer. As you guys can see, we are in the headquarters of a 2036 that has yet to be. Thank you so much, Mason.
What do you think about modernity?
I mean, you earned the question. I'm not here. I mean, by the way, we have to do the Patreon. You earned the question, but brother, look around. Look around. Look around me. Look where I am. Okay? I am literally in the year 2042 right now. Okay? So modernity, we're beyond that. We're past that, dude. This is the fucking future you're watching. You are literally watching a live stream broadcasted from the goddamn future. Okay? You are literally watching a live stream broadcasted from the fucking future. Whoa. I mean, okay, not a very topical question. But thank you for the 5. But what I think about modernity is that it's old news. Because I'm from the fucking future right now. I'm broadcasting live from the future. You want to ask me what I think about modernity? I think it's old fucking news, right? I got the best camera in the fucking game. This camera is unbelievable. Holy shit. And guys, it's all about the camera settings. But I went overkill with this fucking camera. I got a full lens. It's a mirrorless camera. It's better than DSLR. I'm gonna tell you the camera I got, guys. Don't fucking sue me. Thank you so much, Dark. Appreciate you. Now, you guys may faint when you hear about this camera because of how much it fucking costs. And I can always return it if it's just too much, right? But I feel like this is a worthy investment. Ones of you guys think it's a worthy investment. I got a Sony A7 III with the lens that came with the lens. What do you guys think? I don't even want to mention the price. I'm not mentioning the price. If you don't mention the price, I'm not going to mention it, okay? I'm not mentioning it because it'll give me a fucking heart attack if I talk about it, okay? It will give me a heart attack. But I want to put everything into the stream. I want to put it all into the stream. You guys fucking like this? You like this? Let me, do I want to show you the background here? No, I'm not going to show you the background. Listen, just trust me right now. Trust me. This is a next level fucking camera. This is next fucking level. We are officially a professional grade stream and media platform right now. I mean, this is beautiful. This is absolutely stunning, beautiful, okay? Now, we're gonna take a moment to go into the kitchen of the futuristic place that I'm at. So guys, give me a second. I'm gonna head right into the kitchen and I'll be right, I'm gonna head right there, okay? So I'm gonna walk there, okay? So I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm walking to the kitchen. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm walking to the kitchen right now. And, okay, we're here. All right, I'm in the kitchen now, all right? So as you can see, this is actually what it looks like. And we're in the kitchen. And in the kitchen, Nadia's cooking some food. I don't know if you can see her. But here we are. I got the settings on lockdown, right? And this shit looks sick as fuck, okay? This is like, I've never had a better... I mean, I'm in love with it. I'm in love with it, right? I'm in love with it. This is the best investment I ever fucking made, okay? Best investment I ever fucking made. And I don't even care about microphone sound. This picture quality is next level unreal, okay? This shit is unreal. Let's go back outside, though, because we don't want to bother Nadia. She's in the kitchen right now. We don't want to bother her. We're going to go right outside, right? Right, Nadia?
Yeah.
Because I'm being a little too loud right now. So we're going to go outside and we're going to continue to talk about what we got to talk about. Because we got a lot of topics we want to cover today and a lot of things to talk about today, including the Rage Against War rally, which I watched some of it and I was impressed, especially Jackson's speech, probably the best speech I saw there, and Jimmy Dore's speech, best ones by far that I saw there. But the PSL is doing their own cringe one in about a few weeks, and what a bunch of fucking losers, right? Bunch of losers the PSL are. Let's go right outside, guys. I'm going to walk right outside. Give me a moment. I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to walk outside. I'm going to walk outside. All right, we're here. We're back, all right? And we're back outside. We can be as loud as we want. I'm just kidding. We really can't. Because even here in the future, I'm broadcasting this from the future. Even here in the future, there's fucking rules, okay? So we cannot actually be as loud as we want. But we can actually have somewhat of a fun, engaging, great, high quality, fun, topical, enlightening stream. And in particular, I want to enlighten you guys about the problem of Trotskyite Jibber Jabber and what that fucking means. So if you don't know, as of this morning, I officially have launched the Anti-Trotskyite Jibber Jabber Twitter campaign. The Anti-Trotskyite Jibber Jabber Twitter campaign is basically a new campaign I'm launching where I want you, the guerrilla army, every time you're on Twitter and you see some Trotskyite Jibber Jabber, I want you to reply, Trotskyite Jibber Jabber. Don't need to give an explanation. Don't need to defend yourself. Don't need to give any further comment. Just let them know it's Trotskyite Jibber Jabber. Now, I've already done this a few times, right? I've done this a few times, and I plan to continue to do it. It's my favorite thing to do now, but we need dozens, if not hundreds of people to be doing the same thing to broadcast the message of where the actual headquarters of Western Marxism-Leninism actually is. It's not with the PSL. It's not with the red libs of Hakeem and Hugo Pink. It's not with the Maoists, the so-called Maoists, even though we're friendlier with those Maoists. Thank you so much, Soapbox. Appreciate you.
Thank you for tackling this. It really seems like this half-Trotsky, half-Bernstein freak clique is just about consciously holding the exact opposite positions as infrared. Next level obsessive haters.
Yeah, absolutely. But even worse, right? Even worse what you're dealing with in that case is you're dealing with the cosmonaut people. That is the combination of the SOCDEM revisionism with Trotskyism. The cosmonauts, Khrushchevites, Khrushchev, Trotsky, social democracy, Vosh, anarchism, red libid, Trotsky. It's all fucking Trotsky, guys. It's all Trotsky, and I'm going to explain that to you in this stream so you will be equipped theoretically to have the confidence to be able to participate in this campaign that we are launching today. We are purging Trotskyism from American politics in the form of exposing it. We want to raise awareness about the fact that almost all Western communism is Trotskyism, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why, and this is the most important reason. Communism in the West has a bad rap. Let's admit it. Most people, when they think of communism, I'm talking about MAGA people, the people that actually matter, and in particular the working class, they don't want any of the Trotskyite jibber jabber. They don't like Trotskyism. It has a bad fucking rap, okay? It has a bad fucking rap here in the West. And since Trotskyism has such a since communism has such a bad rap, we've talked about and discussed the reasons why, but we haven't actually delved into the history of that. We've talked about, I've heard the stuff about the synthetic left and all that kind of stuff. It's not sufficient. This stems from something more fundamental, which is something I love saying, more fundamental. It stems from something deeper, okay? And I'm going to explain what that is. So everyone knows 100 years ago you had international social democracy. We all know that, right? And then you had what we call the October Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and 20th century communism as we know it. Now, most of the non-Marxist-Leninists appraise the event negatively, right? They appraise ask Noam Chomsky asking about the Bolshevik Revolution. Oh, it was undemocratic and Rosa Luxemburg was right. Whatever he says, right? And that's pretty common in the Western left, but not the dominant view. The dominant positive appraisal of the legacy of the October Revolution, whose significance I'm going to explain to you, comes from the Trotskyist perspective, which is more or less positive, not even only positive appraisal of the October Revolution, but a more or less sympathetic appraisal of 20th century communism in general. Even people you like Michael Parenti, are in some sense guilty of this Trotskyism, this apologia for communism. Thank you so much, Harold.
I love Ramon Mercader.
Thank you, Harold. Appreciate you. Even Michael Parenti, to some extent, is guilty of this. Even he's guilty of this kind of thing, right? Because what he engages in is an apologia, and that's what Western leftists, no matter what their disposition toward 20th century communist states are, it's a form of apologia. It is not actually a subjective reenactment or adoption of Marxism-Leninism itself in the American context. What it is trying to apologize for what's going on over there from our Western modern perspective. Well, more or less, that's the position Trotsky occupied with regard to the Bolshevik Revolution. Trotsky was not a Leninist. Trotsky didn't actually embrace the spirit of the revolution. Trotsky wanted to use the October Revolution to realize the mission of Western socialism and Western international proletarian revolution from the Eurocentric Western perspective. Trotsky was a thinker of classical modernity who thought that the October Revolution in Russia was a means to an end. The ends being the, leap into communism, a global one-world government that completely centralizes everything and takes over the European empires and colonies to basically transform the whole world into the beautiful, ideal communist society. That is Trotskyism. That is Trotsky's perspective. The Russian context of the October Revolution was totally neglected and scorned by Trotsky, and I can give you examples of this. Trotsky was the adventurist who wanted to forcibly spread the Russian Revolution westward to Poland and to Germany, and then Stalin was here saying, listen, the Poles and the Germans are at their own pace. We can't occupy those countries and force our thing on them. They have their own line of development going on. We need to consolidate the real Russian Revolution here in the former Russian Empire, here in Russia, right? And Trotsky scorned the Russian content. He didn't care about that. He didn't dig his feet deep into the soil of the Russian people as Stalin did. And I'm going to explain to you the significance of that and how the Trotskyist ideology grew to be by far the most powerful form the most powerful form of Western leftist ideology, even up to this date, regardless of one's appraisal of Stalin, Mao, and all those other things. This does not exonerate you or exempt you from being a potential Trotskyist. You may be a Trotskyist and not even know it. Thank you so much, MIG. Appreciate you.
C.L.R. James and Chapman did a horrific disservice to Marxism-Leninism in the U.S. in particular.
But so did Sam Marcy, and that's what a lot of people miss. But this is what I want to emphasize, guys. You may be a Trotskyist and not even know it. That's what we're here to do. I'm not just here to shit on these ISO and other people. I'm here so that we can defeat the Trotskyism within. It's an exorcism, if you will, to defeat Trotskyism broadly. So you can be aware of just what it is significant about Marxism-Leninism in particular. Thank you so much, Dementor. Appreciate you, brother. Holy fuck.
Great camera, Harry, but you need a better green screen. The kitchen just doesn't look realistic. Hope this helps cover a small part of the camera equipment.
It does. Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate it. By the way, guys, don't feel bad. If anything, it was my decision. But thank you so much, Dementor. It's my decision to go all out on the camera. Because I want infrared to look high quality. I want you guys to have a good viewing experience. I want you to turn on this stream and feel like you're watching something from the future with professional grade quality, that looks be good and professional. I don't want you guys to have to sit and watch some grainy bullshit and, well, you're going to sit there and watch that. No, I want you guys to feel like this is the cutting edge because it fucking is. And I learned a thing or two from going to Disney World where how that shit matters. I am the Walt Disney of Marxism-Leninism. I am here to make sure you guys have a good experience. I am here to make sure you guys can consume Marxist-Leninist content in a way that is tasteful, in a way that is enjoyable, in a way that is advanced and cutting edge and high class. And I wanted to inspire you. I wanted to inspire you so you can impact your surroundings, your own immediate surroundings, in ways that I can't even dream of reaching. Okay? So it's all worth it to me. It's worth the cost. And I hope you guys trust my judgment that this camera was a good idea. And if it turns out not to be, I'll just go fucking return it. I was planning on that originally until I turned it on and started fiddling with it, and I realized, holy fuck, this is next level. This is next fucking level, okay? This is like, oh my, I'm proud to be streaming. I have never, ever had a better time streaming. I mean, look at me. Look at me. I look incredible. This whole thing, I mean, this background, I mean, I know it doesn't look realistic. But come on. It still looks pretty fucking cool, right? I am here. I'm here in the future. I want you guys to be immersed. Suspend your disbelief. Yes? Huh? Suspend your disbelief. There was a car that was driving by, and I said yes. They rolled down their window and they drove away, by the way. So that's what happened. But guys, suspend your disbelief. We're here to have fun LARP. By the way, LARP, there's a difference between bad LARP and good LARP. Bad LARP is people who think they are engaging in something they're not doing. Bad LARP is when people say, all we need to do is Mao did and just go to Kmart and start. That's bad LARP. Good LARP is when you are intentionally putting on a theatrical show to create a pleasant, entertaining, or enjoyable experience. Good LARP is just supposed to be fun. Bad LARP is people who take themselves too seriously, thinking they're engaging in revolutionary action when all they're doing is clowning around. I'm not doing that. I am here to give you guys an aesthetical experience of the highest degree. I'm sick of the cheap shit when it comes to ML, communism in the USA. I want this to be cutting edge shit, okay? Anyway, enough commentary on the cameras and stuff. I want to continue on the content. You may be a Trotskyist and not even know it. What is it that defines Trotskyism? Is it just one specific position, or is it the whole thing about world revolution as opposed to socialism in one country? These are all symptoms rather than the core pathology. The core pathology is this. It is the only way that Western subjectivity, modern, classically Western subjectivity, tries to reconcile with the real revolutionary event. And I mean revolutionary in the sense that it opened a portal in the fabric of our being. Literally, right? The October Revolution. The single event of the 20th century, the October Revolution that changed it all, that in a sense turned our world upside down. I'm going to explain exactly how that was. And Trotskyism represents the only Western perspective that meets that October Revolution with some kind of positive appraisal. And how else could it? Let's think about it. The October Revolution was a violent revolution that deposed not the Tsar, as in the case of the French Revolution overthrowing the king. It deposed a democratic provisional government. How do you ideologically reconcile yourself with that fact? What is the casus belli that justifies such an event? The October Revolution introduces an entirely new postmodern logic to history as a whole of retrocausal justification, an event that justifies itself after the fact, retrocausally, an event that retroactively establishes its own moral, historical, material, and ideological premises. That's the significance of the October Revolution. And I'll explain this to you in a way that I'm paraphrasing Dugin. The logic of retrocausality first asserts itself in the form of Lenin's polemicizing against the deviationism. Holy fuck, Chairman Meow, thank you so much, brother.
I don't watch you, I listen to you. This dollar is for you to get faster internet.
Thank you so much, Chairman Meow. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you so much. Trust me, when I get home, I have the fastest internet I can have, right? I have the fastest internet that I could have, especially when I get home. But what I want to tell you guys, thank you so much, Chairman Meow, though. I really appreciate it, man. I mean, I dropped a lot on this camera. You guys are helping. I really appreciate it. But don't feel obliged, because I made this choice. And remember what I told you guys. I'm a high investment, high risk, high reward type of guy. I want this to pay. I believe in this. I believe in this infrared stuff. So don't worry about it, right? I'll take the risk. I'll take the risk to make this next level. By the way, guys, we're already working on the merch, the hats, and that should be done this week. Well, I mean, the preparation, that's going to be done soon. Well, as far as when we can get them shipped to you guys, we're going to see as soon as possible. I'm hoping March. I'm hoping, fingers crossed for March. But there's a lot of work being done now. It's the train is in motion now. Okay, with all this bullshit of going to sleep. Non-compete is live. Non-compete is a Trotskyite. There you go. Trotskyite spotted. That's exactly what a Trotskyite is. Anyway, guys, it all begins, as far as the retrocausal logic, the new modernity of the October Revolution, with Lenin's notion, his interpretation of Marx's understanding of historical materialism. Now, the economistic trend within Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, economism was this idea that instead of forming a political party with the intent to seize power or participate in political life, you're going to just let the economy develop from a feudal stage to a capitalist one, all on its own. And then capitalism, all on its own, will develop into socialism, and there's no need for the political at all. Because according to science, Marxism is a science, it's just the economy will develop, we don't need to participate in it. You had other trends like stagism. I call it stagism, but it was Menshevism, the idea that, okay, capitalism needs to develop first. Once the proletariat is already here, that's when we can start getting to work. Before then, we can't do anything. We're just confined to sitting here and waiting for the bourgeoisie to lead us to the democratic revolution and create the conditions for a modern industrial proletariat. Lenin did something different. In circumstances where the premises of socialism did not exist in the form of a modern industrial capitalist system and a proletariat, I mean, Russia had basically a missing proletariat for a long period of time. It's only in later, that you start seeing one actually develop, but it was such a small minority anyway that the problem still acutely asserted itself in the Russian context. There's a missing revolutionary subject, and there's a missing industrial capitalism. How can you be a socialist in Russia when the premises of socialism aren't even there or developed? That's the problem Lenin's dealing with. And Lenin addresses this problem in his book, The Development of Capitalism in Russia. Bear with me. If you don't bear with me, the Trotskyist inside of you may actually prevail. Listen to my words carefully, because the Trotskyist inside of you is not going to like what I have to hear. Okay? Now, I want to continue explaining this to you. To continue explaining this to you, more or less, the absence of the premise, but the presence of the conclusion, is the real paradox of Bolshevism and Leninism. The Marxism aspect does not really explicitly address this quandary. The method of inquiry differs from the manner of presentation. That's Marx in his, I think it was his preamble to Capital. Oh my God, a ghost! In his introduction to Capital Volume 1, I forget what edition it was. So the input differs from the output. And in this case, the input being the development of modern Western industrial capitalism, the output being socialism, both as a form of proletarian consciousness and the rise of a modern proletariat and yada, yada, yada. And Marxism doesn't really deal with the question of, now we have the conclusion, socialism. So where does that leave us as far as the premise and our conditions are concerned? To explain this in a way philosophically that might make a little more sense to you, let's understand it in terms of a parable of oppression. Thank you so much, Backtrack Podcast. Appreciate you, brother.
Consider this only a mere partial repayment for all the knowledge I've gotten and taken beautiful notes on from your streams, which have helped me with my writing. I'm using your latest for a piece.
Thank you so much, Backtrack. I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that. But think of it in terms of a parable of oppression of some kind, right? Someone says something like, I was beaten as a prisoner, and I was oppressed, and I was, for my whole life, treated like shit. And this led me to be an advocate for human civil rights advocate, right? So here's the quandary. Are you thereby retrocausally establishing your shitty oppression and experiences as necessary? Morally, actually, are they necessary? There's a discontinuity, you see? All these experiences happened to you, which led you to become a civil rights activist, for example, right? So are those experiences now experiences that if you were to go back in time, you would have repeated? Are they necessary experiences? Are they morally necessary experiences? Since those were the experiences that led you to the conclusion you came to. Now, the same thing is true for scientific socialism and Marxism. English industrial capitalism these are the formative conditions out of which socialism, and scientific socialism in particular, but Marxism more generally, becomes both possible and necessary. So does that establish industrial capitalism as necessary? That is the quandary Leninism is dealing with, and that's something Marx does not really deal with. He gets close to it, but Marx is mainly dealing with a linear development of Marxist thinking in relation to analyzing capitalism, right? Capital Volume 1 to Capital Volume 3. You get the same quandary of discontinuity in the form of the transformation problem, the transformation of values into prices and vice versa. How does that happen? Once you arrive at the conclusion of prices, how do you go back and retrocausally establish the necessity of value? And that is somewhat of a quandary, right? That is a kind of paradox that plagued Marx according to certain interpretations of Marx's biography and Marx's life. So the Leninism part of Marxism-Leninism is really about retrocausality in some sense. How does the conclusion come to affect its own premise? If a premise causes a conclusion, what is the status of the premise for the conclusion? How do you go from the is to the ought? Right? By the way, guys, one's in the chat if you're experiencing any outages or stream interruptions or lag or anything of that nature. By the way, so that's what Leninism is about, okay? Do you agree with I don't agree with that, no. All right, I got it. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I got it. Okay, but in any case, to continue, without interruption, that's what we're dealing with when it comes to the significance of Leninism. More or less, Leninism is about repeating the conclusion in the premise. So, for example, in the development of capitalism in Russia, Lenin looks at the conclusion of industrial urbanizing tendencies of the Russian Empire, the capitalist centers. Now, how does Lenin deal with that? He doesn't say, okay, that means feudalism. Sorry, that means capitalism is a necessary stage before socialism, and thereby feudalism is a necessary stage before capitalism. He doesn't deal with this linear logic of cause and effect. He takes the effect that's disclosed before him, and he imposes it on the premise. Lenin looks at these cities, capitalistic relations in the Russia cities, and he distills the essence of these relations and tries to analyze them under a microscope back in the countryside, the feudalistic countryside. And he says, this thing that we're seeing in the cities is developing in the premise. There is the first instance of a fundamental retrocausality inherent in Leninism. Right? The conclusion must affect its very own premise, its very own beginning. You're having trouble understanding what I mean. Basically, when it comes to I'll simplify it for you then. When it comes to the paradox of the missing proletariat and the missing premises of socialism, Dugin, for example, writes that the interesting retrocausal logic of the Bolshevik state was that the state had to actively create its own premises, meaning the state had to undertake the role of modernizing Russia's economy, even though, according to the dogmatic Marxism, that's what capitalism is supposed to do. It's capitalism which is supposed to be the modernizing force. Socialism is simply supposed to take it to the next stage. But in the Russian Empire, you didn't have a fully modernized industrial capitalistic economy. So the communists, lacking the premises for their own political dictatorship, had to create the economic premises. In other words, it's a total inversion of traditionally dogmatic Marxism. Dogmatic Marxism basically says, here's the base, the economic base. The political superstructure is caused by the base. The base comes first, and then the political superstructure. And Dugin notes, for example, how in the Soviet Union, in the Soviet state built by Lenin, this was the opposite of its logic. The superstructure of the proletarian dictatorship came first, and the base, which is supposed to support that political dictatorship, has to be built afterwards. So, according to the view of Trotsky and the other Western Marxists, they were saying, no, first, the socialist mode of production has to exist, and then you can have a proletarian, whatever, dictatorship. And then here is Lenin and the Bolsheviks who say, no, first we have the proletarian dictatorship, then we can establish the base, the economic base, as supporting us retrocausally. So yes, it's Terminator. Skynet has to go back into the past to create the conditions of its own existence. Bolshevism, communism, is something that dwells in the future. And it affects our reality in the form of a future affecting its own past, creating the premises of its own being, here and now. And that is the retrocausal logic of Leninism. It's been lagging lately, yeah. It's the polar opposite of stagism. So when you hear Marxism-Leninism, that's a big part of it. People ask me, Haas, what's all with this sci-fi, futuristic LARP and all this stuff? Marxism-Leninism is inherently a science fiction ideology. It's science fiction, and just in the strict sense that it's not constrained or restricted to past scientific discoveries. It is something quite literally, it's an ideology quite literally from the future. It's not only future-looking and future-oriented, it acts upon reality from the future. It acts upon reality from reality's own future. Guys, the Communist Manifesto. It's a manifesto. It's telling you something about the future. The communists know your future. They are living in your future. And they are here to affect the present in such a way that it catches up with that future. So that, my friends, is basic to Marxism-Leninism. Now, what does that have to do with Trotskyism and Trotsky? And also, more importantly, what are the implications of this? Well, the implications are simple. When it comes to the dialectic of form and content, typically, every ideologue wants the content. The form is meaningless. Who cares about the form? Give us the content. So, for example, if you're a socialist, the content of socialism is Hakim, it's a moneyless, classless, stateless society. Whatever, right? Propertyless, moneyless, classless, stateless society. Whatever, right? This, they say, some way to relate to the content of what your ideology or what your program or what your movement aspires toward. So it's a dwelling in the content. Of course, materialism is content-oriented, obviously, right? Materialism isn't just about, it's not about form, that's idealism. It's about the content, the meat and potatoes, right? But the problem is that oftentimes this way of relating to ideology in particular, the content-oriented one, if you will, is undialectical. Thank you so much, Boydburn. Appreciate you.
This capability of accelerating the present into its future, first pioneered by Lenin, has been honed and pushed into excellence by the CPC?
Yes. Oh, yes, precisely. Yes, precisely, yes. Like, yes, absolutely, positively, absolutely, unequivocally, unquestionably, inignorably, with 1,000 times emphasis, yes, 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 okay? Thank you so much, Voidburn, by the way, appreciate it. But as I was saying, that is the content. So it's basically, this is the structure of most revolutionary and radical ideologies in the West. I want this goal. Society is messed up. This goal, this solution is the remedy. And all of the forms that exist are in my way. All of these forms are in my way. I want the content. I know the content of socialist ideology, a classless, moneyless, stateless, whatever. So all of society, all of the forms that stand before me are merely obstacles that are getting in the way of my ability to realize this end goal, right? Now, more or less, this perversion is what defines Trotskyism, first and foremost. Trotskyism is defined by the perversion of a kind of cult of the ends, right? That completely neglects form. Trotsky hijacks the Bolshevik Revolution into a purely destructive rather than constructive force. For Trotsky, the Bolshevik Revolution, and it really anticipates the PSL as how fucking scary it is. But Trotsky's basic idea is almost a caricature of what the fascists and the Nazis would accuse communism of being. Actually, it establishes how Trotsky was, at least implicitly, but we know historically he was explicitly, aligned with fascist ideology. Because the idea is that Trotsky is this enlightened, westernized intellectual who needs to destroy all of the forms of humanity in order to realize the end goal of true, full communism. So Trotsky realizes that he's going to use these backward Asiatic Russian peasants, and he's basically going to throw them at the West to break down the Western states and societies and basically enforce and institute with pure iron will full communism or something, right? Some jibber jabber along those lines. So Trotsky looks at the Russian peasant subject purely as a form of cannon fodder to throw at his own Western enemies. Who does that remind you of, by the way? It's how the PSL thinks of the anti-imperialist states and communist states today in the global South. The PSL represents the subjectivity of using marginalized people in America and in the global South, but especially even in America. It could be sexual identity, it could be racial identity, whatever. The PSL wants to weaponize them to fulfill its revolution, right? And more or less, that is basic Trotskyism. Sam Marcy and this is his idea that we need to support anti-imperialist communist states against American imperialism. That is fully in line with Trotsky's hijacking of the Russian Revolution to realize his own revolutionary aims for global revolution or whatever, right? Direct global revolution. It's just completely undialectical and false, right? So that is, it's not just crude communism. I mean, Trotsky, thank you so much, Void. I appreciate you, brother.
A matter of actionable will versus delusional will, where the Marxist-Leninists can choose how quickly we move through these aspects of reality, whereas the Trotskyist tries to detour, or look the other way. Delusional worship of the individual will.
Yeah, Voidburn, by the way, thank you so much for the donation, brother. I really appreciate it. But, you're right. It's really about the individualism. There's a fundamental individualism at play when it comes to Trotskyism. But the reason for that is because Trotskyism is just drawing from the legacy of classical modernity, of classical European modernity. And to put that in simpler terms, classical European modernity somehow only accepts the reality of the individual. Society, for example, has no metaphysical status. There are just individuals and the relationships between individuals. That's the because for classical modernity, you only have tangible substances. You only have the certainties of cogito, for example. You have the certainties of the senses. You have the certainties of tangible, measurable things that stand before the individual. The individual says, "Here I stand," and the only thing that exists is within the capacity of the individual to measure, take note of, experience, or somehow observe. But virtualities, like, for example, society, things that somehow define what individuals are without being immediately tangible to them, that's not possible to perceive within the frame of classical modernity, because they also obey a totally different temporal logic. They obey a retrocausal logic of a future, as in society, affecting its own past, as in individuals, in the form of virtualities, right? So, yes, you're dealing with a fundamental individualism, which is what defines Trotskyism. But what makes Trotskyism so dangerous... Thank you so much, Clyde. Appreciate you, man.
So Trotskyism is globalized, the ends justify the means, like Hitlerite ethno-nationalism ends justify the means?
Yeah, actually, yes. I think so, right? But we're going to continue, and I'm going to explain to you the real significance of Marxism-Leninism in contrast to that, even beyond the basic logic of retrocausality, which I hope all of you understand by now. But as I was saying, right, the reason Trotskyism is so dangerous is because the way in which it tried to hijack the Russian Revolution. Trotsky didn't care about the unique significance of the Russian Revolution and what it meant positively for the Russian people. He didn't care that this was a specifically local event in space and time that had prolonged historical consequences for the Russian subject and the Russian people. Determinate ones. That this was a revolution which one will have to work to build, to draw out its consequences, like on a very long scale of time, right? When is the President's Sunday debate? He has not messaged me. He claims he's going to get back to me about it, so I don't know what to tell you, right? But Trotsky saw the Russian Revolution purely as an opportunity to kind of speed run a communist revolution, quote unquote, for the whole of Europe. But in doing so, he still never actually departed from the fundamental social democratic base, according to which, you know, there is a linear stage progression of socialism, where it's feudalism, then it's capitalism, and the advanced proletarian class created by the Industrial Revolution and created by industrial capitalism has to somehow already exist before it's possible for there to be a proletarian dictatorship, and it also has to exercise that dictatorship and not share power with, for example, the peasants. That's the content. Now, in terms of, in a one-sided perspective, that is actually true, right? Because we know from Marx that the proletariat is the revolutionary subject. And Marx and Engels in the Communist Manifesto did anticipate that the proletariat would become a majority in the world, basically, and wrest control from the bourgeoisie and achieve a dictatorship, right? Because it's a numerical majority. But that didn't happen. Marx and Engels' prediction didn't pan out. So Trotsky was left with the question, how do you establish a proletarian dictatorship when you're in the minority, when the proletariat's in the minority? And Trotsky opted for basically a form of civil war where the proletarian dictatorship, I'm not saying this is the reason for the Russian Civil War, I'm saying it would amount to a basic war of maybe 5% of the population against the 95%, purely maintaining itself by means of direct dictatorship, right? With no basis, no roots in the forms of existing society. No roots and no basis in the existing forms of society, right? So that's what we're dealing with in the case of that same predicament that I told you before Lenin had to deal with. It's just Trotsky's thinking about it in a different way. And in Trotsky's perspective, the advanced industrial West also has a proletarian majority. Therefore, for communism to be successful, it has to win in the industrial, advanced capitalist West. From that basis, the already existing forms of colonial domination and control will be used to enforce this dictatorship of an enlightened proletarian minority on the whole of mankind, on the whole of the world. And Trotsky's terrifying idea was more or less that Russia could be used to create this dictatorship in the West. Basically create a fascist dictatorship in the West, impel the Western workers to seize power, and, you know, a little force won't hurt them either, apparently. Thank you so much, Harold. Yeah, quite literally. I mean, it was like, it was Antifa before Antifa, in a way, right? So this is Trotsky's idea. And that is what is so dangerous about it. Because Trotskyism is like a social democracy with teeth, in a sense, right? It's like, it's more or less worse than fascism in a way, if allowed to be drawn to its conclusions. I mean, put it this way, neoconservatism emerges out of Trotskyism, the idea that the United States needs to forcefully topple regimes around the world to do regime change and export democracy and spread color revolutions. All that's coming from Trotskyist. It's a direct Trotskyist lineage that's responsible for that. And these are, as Alex Jones says, these are hardcore Trotskyists, right? So Trotskyism is a genocidal ideology. It's a proto-Hitlerite ideology. And it's a complete repudiation of the positive achievements of Leninism. Trotsky was an opportunist who wanted to use the Russian Revolution and use the Bolshevik Revolution for ends that were alien to the authentic history of both the Russian people and the Bolshevik Party at large. So where does Marxism-Leninism fit? How does Marxism-Leninism articulate revolutionary consciousness in the stead of Trotskyism? First of all, any revolutionary consciousness that already preemptively establishes its own ends and its own content, and thereby makes the next step of just imposing that on reality, is by default Trotskyist. It's all Trotskyism. That form of revolutionary subjectivity where you say, I want this, I want to do this, so I'm going to take this and just impose it on reality. That, my friends, is just Trotskyism. It's voluntarism, it's adventurism, and it's Trotskyism. Maoists who are doing that, they're Trotskyists. The PSL, we all know they're Trotskyists. Even the Democratic Socialists, they're Trotskyists. Anarchists, they're Trotskyists. Vosh, a Trotskyist. Trotskyism is just this view that there is a real, tangible, and immediately accessible content of what socialism or communism is that comes at the expense of form. And that, you can characterize every expression of that as Trotskyism, right? The notion that somehow the forms that exist before us can simply be liquidated and annihilated in favor of some kind of immediate revolutionary content. Now, how does Marxism-Leninism starkly contrast itself with Trotskyism in terms of the dialectic of content and form? Well, it's simple. And we're going to begin this with socialism in one country. What is the real serene beauty and sublimity of socialism in one country? Socialism in one country elects to establish a different relationship to the dialectic of content and form. Socialism in one country. Give me a moment. Thank you so much, Mason. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, brother. Is Daesh Trotskyist? Yeah. Thank you so much, Mason. Appreciate you.
Is National Bolshevism Trotskyism?
Yes, I think so. I think the Nazbols were Trotskyists, actually. Especially when you have to make explicit the national aspect as part of the I mean, it's all about what David Lynch in his films, his Twin Peaks, it's called Garmin-Bozia, right? What's the sweet stuff, the Garmin-Bozia that everyone wants? What's the content? It can be Trotsky's global proletarian revolution, or it could be the National Bolshevism of the Nazbols. But it's the sweet stuff. It's the immediate object of ideological and praxeological gratification. And when that is what you have, and you impose that on reality, liquidating the wealth of forms, real forms, if you can even call them that within reality, that's Trotskyism. Now, the serene beauty of Marxism-Leninism is quite different, because Marxism-Leninism turns form and content on their head, basically reversing their significance. Within the advanced science of Marxism-Leninism, form becomes content, and content becomes form. Now, what do I mean by that? How does that reversal accomplished? Because Marxism-Leninism, in the first place, deals with the immediate circumstance of the failure of the October Revolution to spread, which is something the Bolsheviks were hedging their bets on. Admittedly, they were, but they were hedging their bets that it would spread organically, not by force or through the military, as Trotsky wanted, but through it'd be the spark that lights the fire, and it didn't fucking happen. So, what was the Leninist conclusion to draw from this supposed failure of the revolution to spread? Arc to freedom. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Trotsky was an individualist at his core. That's why Western intellectuals love him.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. You're wholeheartedly, totally, completely, unambiguously, unequivocally, indisputably correct. Okay, let's continue. How does Marxism-Leninism reverse the dialectic of form and content? Well, you're dealing with the situation of the failure of the revolution to spread. The October Revolution, the Russian Revolution. And out of this, what Lenin would call hopelessness, he directly referred to the situation as that, emerged a new content, if you will, right? Out of the very failure, so the Bolsheviks were anticipating, or perhaps expecting, the Garmin-Bozia of world revolution, the content, to be realized or to be attained. It didn't happen. So the serene beauty and even mystique of Marxism-Leninism lied in the way, this is an Eastern wisdom at play. It lied in the way that they elected to find success in that failure. In their failure to realize and to attain the thing they thought they wanted, they actually got what they want. That makes sense. I'm going to explain that in a better way. In the failure of the revolution to spread around the world, in that hopelessness, in the failure to reach the content of the revolutionary aspiration, some kind of consciousness or intuition of the real content of the revolutionary aesthetic was attained. That very failure revealed to the Bolsheviks what the true aspiration and aim of the revolution was, creating a complete shift. This is the brilliance, guys. Please follow me here. From a subjective aspiration toward the content to an objective one. The Bolsheviks basically sat here and said, we thought that the revolution was going to spread subjectively, and we were wrong. Reality had other plans, objectively. And that, for the first time, revealed itself. Call it the winds of history, call it destiny, call it fate, call it whatever you want. But something external from the subjective aspiration of the revolutionary. The revolutionary situation, the external circumstances themselves. And that was not a fulfillment of the Trotskyite permanent revolution, as though you're holding a sword and you're constantly thrusting it forward. It was a resignation of some kind, a step backward, if you will. A resignation that paradoxically interpolated the Bolshevik subjectivity by the new revolutionary situation itself, by a new circumstance. And this is what we should really talk about right now, in terms of the significance of Marxism-Leninism. Because it seems to be lost on a lot of people that Marxism-Leninism defined itself by failure or disappointment from the very beginning. I mean, beginning with Lenin and Leninism. Why is it that the prophesized revolution of Marx didn't come to pass? Why was there a missing proletariat in the Russian Empire, but a very real existing scientific socialist consciousness? Why is it that the advanced capitalist West, precisely where the least revolutionary countries, compared to Russia, for example, right? That was the first disappointment and failure. But the fundamental one that elevates Stalin as an immortal history, a hero of mankind for all of history, were the circumstances that gave rise to the theory of socialism in one country. And this is the decisive moment that the real significance of Marxism-Leninism rears its head. Marxism-Leninism was about socialism in one country. People need to... You'd think it wasn't, though, right? Hakim and Hugo Pink and all these people, when you listen to them, right, you'd think that that's completely lost, but the whole distinguishing significance of Stalin in contrast to Trotsky was this, right? It was the theory of socialism in one country. And then as far as the dispute with Bukharin was concerned, it was really the notion that yes, a proletarian dictatorship and a socialistic system can be built in one country. We can actually do this. And Stalin was just logically fulfilling what Lenin already set in motion as early as the development of capitalism in Russia and his polemics with the various trends in Russian Marxism. The aesthetic of Marxism-Leninism is not one of the leveling of all form in reality in favor of some supreme content. It's something much more subtle and difficult to understand without either having direct experience in foreign communist states or resigning yourself to an intense level of theoretical self-criticism. But the aesthetic of Marxism-Leninism is about finding the dialectical harmony between form and content in the content of reality. So, from the Leninist perspective, the forms existing in reality are defined by their actual content. It's not as if the content comes first and then we just simply mow over all of the form and a Trotskyite train just mowing everything out of the fucking way to establish the kind of society we want. It's more like within the existing forms of society lie the kernel of that same revolutionary content. And all the revolutionary consciousness does is distill the contradictions that actually exist in society itself. The various wealth of forms across society become, in a sense, assimilated by the Marxist-Leninist ideology. This is something Boris Groys kind of talks about in The Total Art of Stalinism. In order that they virtually become oriented toward the real content. But what is the real content of the communist revolutionary aims? Thank you so much, Chris Morlock. Appreciate you, man.
Trotsky dined in expensive Manhattan restaurants leaving no tips. Waiters would confront him in the alley, and he would tell them to organize for a revolution if they didn't like it. So he just did one thing retro-casually.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you, man. And yeah, I've heard Trotsky was a huge fucking asshole. I've heard that before. I've definitely heard that before. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. But within Marxism-Leninism, form and content are interrelated and are embedded within a dialectic. And what that means, to put it in common sense terms, is that the truth of the revolutionary aspiration for global revolution was in reality to be found in the real existing conditions of one country, Russia. That is the serene and sublime beauty of socialism in one country. All of this time, you were aspiring for this big global revolution to happen, but the real aspiration was right under your nose. When that failed for you and you were disappointed, you were brought before the cause of your disappointment. And instead of scorning that cause, as Trotsky wanted to, hating the Russian peasants and scorning them for their backwardness and so on. The communists, led by Stalin, the Bolsheviks, looked at the cause of their failure, the real existing Russian civilization, the Russian peasantry, and got to work. They humbled themselves to the cause of their failure. They adapted to the cause of their failure, and they distilled from this cause of their failure a new aim. It's almost like, for example, let's say you want, let's say across the street, you want some kind of like, I don't fucking know, you want, here's a beautiful story. Maybe this will help you understand. Maybe you, maybe you want the latest iPhone or some shit, right? There's a big line to get there, and you're running across the street to go get it. And then, this is a cute little story I'll give you, right? But I don't know if this is going to really help you understand it. You run to get the iPhone, but you fail. Why do you keep failing? Because there's this dog that's in your way, and it's blocking you from being able to go get... I'm so bad at giving fucking examples of anything, right? But there's a dog that's in your fucking way, and you can't get your iPhone. Now, if you're Trotsky, you're probably gonna like get, you know, you're gonna shoot the dog and you're gonna go get your fucking iPhone, right? But if you're Stalin, you're gonna say, maybe I didn't want the iPhone, actually. Maybe this dog is what I wanted. So maybe you'll start leveling with the dog and saying, okay, this dog is clearly here to bother me, and I'm gonna interpret that as something meaningful. So now I'm gonna play catch with the dog and adopt this dog and change my aim. But it's more beautiful than that, right? Because it's a twist of fate. Because here the dog is just some random external obstacle, but the external obstacle in the case of the revolutionary situation, which were the backward conditions of Russia, were the very defining premise of the whole thing. It wasn't clear to them before then. They thought it was going to be one simultaneous global revolution. Little did they know, the revolution was right here, all along. Like right here, all along, right? It's like in a twist of fate, and then later you find out the reason you keep tripping over this fucking dog isn't because I need to kill the dog and go get my phone. It's because, let's say, there's actually a guy with a knife in the Apple store, and the fucking dog came to warn you. It's like some, what do we call it? Some ironical twist of fate like that, you know? You think this dog is just getting in your fucking way to go get what you want, but it's actually defining the nature of the thing you want. And it's because the thing you want, in reality, will just get you fucking killed. This dog is what you want. Because it's warning you, telling you, listen, I'm here blocking you from getting this iPhone, because there's a guy in there who has a fucking knife who's gonna fucking kill you, right? So I'm just trying to establish like a relation of some kind, right? It's not the friends we made along the way. I want to explain this I'm not good at giving examples, and that was a dog shit example. Speaking of dogs, it was a dog shit example, okay? But I hope those of you who are smart can understand the basic point I'm trying to get at here. The basic point is how in the Stalin Revolution, the failure of the revolution was discovered to be the true aim of the revolution. And that was something discovered. That was something discovered. You say, well, it's just copium. He just retroactively tried to account for a failure. And instead of, abandoning the revolutionary aim altogether, he just decided, well, no, this is what we wanted all along. How does he justify getting away with changing the very aim? And I would say it's simple. Because socialism in one country was basically the discovery that we are knocking on an open door. Nowhere was it written that this is impossible. Why is it impossible to build socialism in one country? Why can't we make of this situation? Thank you so much, Voidburn. Appreciate you.
Thank God we failed. Now we know what not to do.
In a sense, yes. Thank you, Voidburn. Appreciate you. Yeah, the twist is what reveals the essence. Exactly, right? So I want to give this more clarity because it's probably not going to be clear to everyone, right? What I'm trying to say. But you could say that the history of communism is just communists having this content in mind of an end goal and stubbornly refusing to abandon that end goal, even in the face of reality contradicting them. But the whole point of scientific socialism is that there isn't actually an end goal. It is quite literally an open door. The only purport communists have and commit themselves to in terms of theory, their only dogma, if you will, well, for example, there isn't a dogma, but their only purport is a commitment to humanity, to material, real existing humanity. It's not a commitment to an ideology. It's not a commitment to a specific object of desire or a specific aim. It's a specific commitment to humanity. And the failure of the Russian Revolution, the failure of the October Revolution, can only be interpreted as the true aspiration, its true aspiration, when one resigns themselves and commits oneself to objective reality. Out of the hopelessness of the situation, it was the subject that decided to adjust their perspective, adjust their stance, and adjust their desire, in a sense. But Trotsky the pervert, his inability to satisfy his desire is interpreted as an indictment on reality itself. Reality has to be destroyed because I didn't get what I want, right? But what if there's a wisdom to the failure for you to get what you want? What if it means you have to change what you want? Or at least reinterpret it in some kind of way? And that really is the whole wisdom and the whole significance of Marxism-Leninism. It's a serene resignation in the face of a limit. So if there is nothing you can do, then do what you can. Not only that, if there's nothing you can do, then you should change your frame of what is the objective reality within which it is possible to act in the first place. And that's the beautiful dialectic that Marxism-Leninism, that Stalinism, if you will, accomplishes. Thank you so much, Super Sarah. Appreciate you, man.
Communism is the freedom to fail with grace?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think so, yes. And by the way, an important question is, at what point do you know you failed? That's an important, it's more important than the question of at what point do you know you, can you know you succeeded? More importantly, at what point can you be aware of the fact that you failed? Give me a moment. Let me do something. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. Just taking out some trash. Yeah, look how great this camera looks. What up, Jackson? How are you? Saw your speech. It was really good. I think the clearness of, well, this important question can be understood in two major events, I think, in communist history. One was the failure of the revolution to spread, the 1920s, or by the time of the 1920s, and the other was in the end of the Cultural Revolution, when it was clear at what point did the Cultural Revolution fail. Because you have two copiums from ultra-leftists, Trotskyists, basically, right? Which is, one of them is that, no, listen, the revolution could have spread and Stalin ruined it. And then the other one was, no, the Cultural Revolution could have finally been completed, but Deng Xiaoping ruined everything. And China would have had full communism now if not for that. And these are two Trotskyite kind of delusions in the face of a very clear fundamental failure. Right? Why didn't I text? Did I not? Oh, I thought you were, I don't know, it's like I saw you give a speech and I just like, I didn't want to...
Trotsky
you know where.
would think we already live in socialism.
I don't think so, no. Thank you so much, Nowhere, appreciate you, man. No, Jackson, I saw you give a speech and I didn't, it's just, I don't know. I felt like I'd be interrupting the event. Somehow. Yeah, I think Jackson gave the best one. And Jimmy. But I like Jackson's the best, honestly. But I just didn't want to interrupt, or I don't know. It's weird. Like, you see someone give a speech live. But anyway, these are two forms of copiism, but how can the failure be defined? See, a true failure is registered. I'm going to explain to you a very important wisdom, guys. You can become aware of the failure, not when you fail to reach your goal. Because yes, you can have a bad infinity and say, well, we could just wait forever. I mean, isn't that the pre-Leninist cope? Oh, we're still waiting for the workers' revolution. Anytime now, right? How do you know when you fail? Here is a real piece of wisdom from Marxist-Leninists. You know you failed when you can distill a new insight, a new discovery, and a new aim from the process by which you attempted to reach your goal and failed. When you can realize a new goal, that's when you can finally register and take note of the fact you failed. You don't fail when you fail to reach your goal. Failure to reach your goal, unless it's constrained, it has a time constraint. It doesn't always. You can always keep doing the same thing over and over again forever, right? But when you take note of that process of failure and you discover in it the content of your aspiration, and when you can distill that content into a form of some kind, you can then know when you failed. And it's a beautiful experience, actually. If you, for example, let me tell you guys something, what I mean by this. If you want to go to the gym and you're lazy, and like, oh, I failed. No, you fucking loser. Keep trying. Keep going. You don't get to fucking fail until you actually build something new from it. You know what I'm saying? You're not allowed to fail until you achieve something that makes that failure necessary. You don't get to fail just because you didn't get what you thought you wanted. At first, even, right? You only really fail when there's something new that comes out of it. And that basically is what defines the history of Marxism-Leninism, more or less, right? You're not allowed to fail until you can redefine the terms of success that renders your previous aim superfluous. Trotsky's aim of global revolution and communism, that's just negatively defined. What does that actually mean? That gonna feed people? No, it's not. Stalin built actual socialism. Who cares about this dumb shit Trotsky? He actually built a real, living, breathing example of it. Oh, it doesn't live up to Trotsky's ideal? That's a bluff. What is the content of Trotsky's ideal? It's a negation. It's an abstraction. It has no reality. The failure of that ideal amounted to the success of a real socialism. The failure of the ideal socialism, the ideal revolution, actually entailed the success of the real one. And that's really how Marxism-Leninism begins to define its history. The inversion of content and form happens when that which used to be attributed to form is discovered as the actual content. For example, take the nation. Hitherto, the nation was just understood as a form, specifically as an institution, formalizing a community of people. But especially after the experience of the Great Patriotic War, the nation is now somehow understood. The very dialectic of form and content defining the nation becomes a content. And that's a very important aspect of Marxism-Leninism you're dealing with. All of the forms of society are turned into material contents. The family, thought to be just a mere formal whatever institution, in the way of the real content of communistic free love and whatever, abolishing the family. But the family is no longer the form, because in the failure to achieve the revolutionary family, you discover the real material content of the family. So that which is the form becomes the content. Form arises out of content. Content is no longer defined as pornographically, as the object of your desire, the garmen bozia, right? The sweet corn that David Lynch puts in his movies. That's not what content means anymore. Material content can only be related to through a resignation of what one thinks, desires, or assumes beforehand that content to be. Once this is suspended, content becomes quite literally defined by the melancholic failure of the individual subject to realize their aim. And I think that's quite a beautiful thing. So you're done? I'm still... You're gonna hear me. You finished? Yeah. it's not just that content isn't static and it's moving. It's more like the content of things is the way in which they are necessary. So, for example, Trotsky will say something like, the nation is unnecessary and it's obsolete. But one of the lessons of socialism in one country is that the nation, the necessity of the nation doesn't come from the idea of the nation. It doesn't come from the will to establish the institution of a nation. The deep necessity of a nation, not morally speaking, by the way, but objectively, like, why do nations exist, come from an objective kind of internal logic or internal logos of nations. Something that is impossible to overcome. So, for example, take a rock, any ordinary thing you can intelligibly establish as something that exists. A rock, right? A rock exists because of its own inability to overcome itself. Yes, the tendency of nature is constant change. So things that exist only because they failed not to be. That failure defines their positive content. So you see how form and content are inverted in dialectical materialism. The materiality of the thing lies in its inability to not be. Its failure to not be. That is what makes it material. What makes it material is not some substance inherent in it. It's not some special quality of realness and reality in it. What makes it material is the specific way it cannot escape its own tragic fate. That, my friends, is... What better describes the history of communism than that? Form is then just derivative of that It's not just you have smooth... let me put it this way, guys. It's not just that you have nothingness, content, nothingness, and then form, different things that resist nothingness, right? The whole thing is inverted. Form is the nothingness. Form is what's nothing. Actual content of things is a specific way of being of a failure, right? A failure to achieve the form. And if you want to go very esoteric, like into Marxist-Leninist cosmology, all material being is oriented around culminating into the thinking spirit, the thinking consciousness. So the cosmology of spirit, it's by Ilyenkov, for example, a Soviet philosopher, Ilyenkov. It is the destiny of all being to culminate into the thinking consciousness. That is the destiny of material reality itself. So you can also say, in a paradoxical, strange sense, a rock is a rock because of the specific way it fails to be thinking being. And that is what gives it the quality of materiality. But here's the thing. This is what's interesting, is that in human history is also defined by the failure of thinking beings to be thinking beings. And it's our failure that defines us as human. It's our failure that defines us as material beings, as human beings. Our failure to fully dissolve into some abstract thinking consciousness. Like, why is it that we're not just thoughts? Why are we also embodied? Right? We're embodied because of a fundamental failure to be what we are. Even I get a headache from this shit, guys. Why do people want to become just thought? We don't, but thought is the culmination of creation. It's the culmination of being. Like, if you believe in the cosmology of spirit, the idea that, like, is this the correct usage of the word teleological? That all material being is teleologically oriented into culminating. In other words, we're not an accident. Like, for Ilyenkov, for Marxist-Leninist dialectical materialism, it is the destiny of material reality to culminate into thinking beings that reflect back upon itself, right? So Zizek calls absolute recoil, this minimum of reflexivity. I think Frank Ruda has a book. It's called The Dash. It's The Dash, right? Is it Frank Ruda who wrote that? I don't know. But if that's true, that also applies to us as well. It's not like we've achieved the perfect state of nature. Our humanity and our history is defined by our own failure to be what we already are. And what we already are is, yes, as Morlock points out, the highest form matter, thought. Thought is matter perfected, but here's the point of dialectics. It's very important. Thought is not possible without its own failure. Thought is not possible without the opposite. Like, it's not perfected matter. Thought is the purest imperfection in nature. It's the purest, most fundamental imperfection within nature. Defined as a thing being itself. Why is a thing being itself the same as a thing being a thought? Because the essence of a thing already implies that there's a difference between the thing and its own reality, its essence. That division is precisely what culminates into the thinking consciousness, into thought or spirit, but let's just say thought so people don't get too confused. That's what it culminates into. Why can't a rock just be a rock. Because the rock that it should be, or aspires to be, is a pure virtuality. A pure virtuality which contradicts the reality of the rock, right? The failure of a rock to be a rock is what defines a rock. That dialectic culminates into thought. Thought is the actuality of reality's difference with regard to itself. A thought is quite literally the not only is a thought the opposite of reality, right? A thought is the culmination of reality's own opposition toward itself. The species is the failure of the genus. In a sense, yes. I think that's Hegel's point, isn't it? So Marxism-Leninism, take away, reflects a spirit of resignation. It's an aesthetic of resignation. It's not a aesthetic of inaction and quietism, but it is an aesthetic of determinate resignation. Like, yes, we have a goal and we will achieve our goal. But the beautiful thing about it, guys, is that if we have a goal as Marxist-Leninists, as communists, we must act as if we have already achieved it. We have already achieved our goal. In 2036, we've already taken over the Communist Party. Everything we're doing now doesn't reflect the passion of some kind of adventure, but walking through the present to realize a future that has already come to pass and which already exists. Marxism-Leninism is a spirit of resignation, which means we walk into our victory. Our victory is given. If our victory is not given, then we are acting in vain. See the point? If our victory is not given, then we are acting in vain. That, my friends, is the significance of faith. We will dwell more upon this subject tomorrow. But I hope you guys like the new camera, and I'm officially announcing the campaign against Trotskyite Jibber Jabber, because all of this revolutionary sloganeering and phase-mongering from Twitter, oh my god, like this not, can you guys identify what Trotskyism is now? Please, ones in the chat, tell me if you can do that at least. When you see someone bitching about how, oh my god, Stalin wasn't a real, oh my god, Putin, oh my god, Haas, how can you hang out with LaRouchites? And how, oh my god, how can you be on the stage with these libertarians at the anti-war rally? And oh my god, this is a betrayal of the true essence. It's Trotskyism. When you have a dogmatism of the true essence as an ideal content that you superimpose upon reality, it's just fucking Trotskyism. So let's stop entertaining the bullshit. Western leftism has at its core Trotskyism, right? It's all Trotsky. It's all Trotskyite bullshit. It's all Trotskyism at its fucking core. Even the Marxism-Leninism in the West is Trotskyist. What are Marxist-Leninists in the West, by the way? They're people who say they're just Trotskyists with regard to the fucking Democrats or the DSA. Oh my God, the DSA is not revolutionary enough, so we're gonna be MLs. No, you're just a fucking Trotskyist. We're not like that. We're not disappointed in anyone. I'm not disappointed in the Democrats, the DSA, or anyone else. The CPUSA, no one. I'm not disappointed in you. I already live in a state of nirvana in which you simply don't exist. I already dwell in a place where you have already failed. I don't have any revolutionary indignation over your betrayal of the revolution. What? I'm like Saloth, the wise. I'm already in nirvana, living in a future where you were already defeated. I don't believe the revolution was betrayed, because I don't believe in the Democrats' revolution to begin with. Oh, the Democrats and the DSA betrayed the Bernie. Bernie betrayed us. No, he didn't. Thank you, Bernie, for betraying us. Thank you, Bernie. You have now cleared the way. Bernie betrayed us. No. Bernie revealed the way of the owl. The way of the owl, my friends. We need only look at the owl, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. With the launch of the infrared initiative of creating the Communist Party we want to see exist, we don't even need to be indignant over the failure of Joe Sims. Thank you, Joe Sims, for your betrayal. You have cleared the way. The era of the Communist Party will begin this year in 2023. Thanks to you for clearing the way. We are blind before the enemy, and we walk into our victory. We look at the owl alone, my friends. Anyway, guys, thank you so much, Chris Morlock. Appreciate you. As you can see, I'm living in the future right now. But even the future is bound by time. And as you can see, it's getting dark here, but give me a moment and I'm going to walk on the sidewalk a little bit and show you just a taste what's in store for us. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you.
Diggers of the revolution already peacefully resting in eternity.
Yeah. I want to that's beautiful, Chris. Thank you so much. I want to show you guys. Let me walk right out here into that. I want to show you a taste of the future to come. Yes, guys. We're already here. 2098. We did it. We made it. We actually did it. We won. Look, it's all real. Now, I know you're living in the past and you can see this beautiful future ahead. I just have to ask you the question. Do you have what it takes to get here?